Welcome to the GTA Advisors Podcast. We interview Greater Toronto Area business owners, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders. Our goal is to bring Greater Toronto Area residents the best advice from our community's brightest minds. Now, here's your host, author, entrepreneur, and real estate innovator, Robert Caruso.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the GTA Advisors Podcast. I'm Robert Caruso. I'm here with Peter Power from Power Pest Control. Welcome back, Peter.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on. And we have an issue with rodents, do we not?
Absolutely. Okay. Weather's getting colder, so they want to find a new home.
They need some warmth. So maybe we'll get right into it. So people are, there must be some concern with rodents this time of year that people want to and need to know about. So maybe explain, okay, so obviously mice and rats are probably the biggest of the two. Maybe explain, the differences between them. Maybe how do you know if you have kind of a mouse or a rat problem? And, start with that and we'll go from there.
Sure. Okay. So pretty much like the mouse, it weighs about 19 grams. A rat can weigh anywhere between 100 to 300 grams. The length of the body from head to tail is about anywhere between 3 centimeters to 8 centimeters. With rats, it's around 32 to 46 centimeters in length. The rats, they're a lot more aggressive than mice. When cornered, the rats may try to attack if they feel like they're cornered. Most times it's flight or fight. They're more likely to run away, but if they're cornered, they may attack. Where mice, they tend to curl up in a ball. The size of the droppings, generally speaking, if the mice droppings is the size of a rice grain or smaller, you have a mouse problem. If it's larger than that, it's generally a rat problem, right? So some of the problems with rats is that they, just like mice, they'll chew up the electrical wiring, they get up in the insulation. The droppings, both rats and mice are disease vectors. So these are some of the problems that that I've experienced this time of the year. So when we're looking at the first thing that when I come on site is I determine whether or not we're dealing with a rat problem or a mouse problem, and my strategies on what I'm going to employ and how to get rid of it is based on what I see first, right? So once I identify what we're dealing with, whether we're dealing with a rat problem or a mouse problem, then I decide on, okay, how am I going to, first of all, find a point of entry, seal it up, and then treatment strategy.
And how do you know, okay, so other than maybe finding droppings or maybe physically seeing them, is there any other signs that people can look for?
Yes, gnawing. So say, for instance, on electrical wiring, I get calls all the time where they're saying, my dishwasher stopped working because a rodent chewed on the dishwasher. Generally speaking, like when mice nibble, it's really tiny, like it's a very small, I'd say it's like maybe about a dime in circumference. With a rat, it's usually about the size of a lumi when they're chewing through something. So you can tell right away by looking at the circumference, or the diameter of what's been bitten. You could tell that's some rodent signs. Also, grease marks. Grease marks is prevalent. So what happens is that when a rodent's running on the ground, they're picking up dirt, right? And as they try to squeeze through holes, it smudges against the circumference of the hole, right? So you'd see these brown marks as they're squeezing through holes where there's pipes and so forth, like around AC lines, around the gas line, inside the kitchen, like the plumbing pipes and so forth. So those are some of the signs that we know that you have a rodent problem. Sometimes you get this odd funny smell in the basement, like dead carcasses, right? Mm-hmm. So you may have had problems for years, you don't even realize it, and then all of a sudden you have this funny urine scent that you can never seem to figure out what's going on and why is it going. So those are some of the things that you start noticing if you have a rodent problem.
And obviously, they're coming from the outside. So is there anything that can be done? Like, obviously, you're going to come in and do what you have to do, but is there anything proactive that people can do on the outside of their homes?
Absolutely. What I recommend is once a year, or especially around the fall right now, homeowners walk around the perimeter of their home. So what you're going to be looking for is any holes such as like where the AC line is going into the wall, pipes like the gas line that's entering the house, Make sure it's thoroughly sealed. Weep hole covers. Sometimes with the weep hole covers, we know that it's important for aeration, but sometimes the builders they make the weep holes so wide that the mice and rats can actually get in. So you have to make sure that there's weep hole covers that are placed inside there. Now, some people, they got bird feeders. Some communities, like some seniors, they love their bird feeders, and some other people that they're bird lovers, so they want to watch the birds and so forth. But sometimes what happens is that, depending on the type of bird feeder that's employed, the squirrels will get to the bird feeder, knock the food on the ground, and then the rodents that the birds won't pick up what's on the ground, and they'll just the rodents like the rats and the mice will feed off that. So you're gonna have to make sure that bird feeders are always kept nice and clean. Your compost bins are as far away from the house as possible. Making sure that the leaves are picked up regularly, because the whole idea is that if we don't know, if the homeowner does not make it conducive for the rat and mouse to survive, meaning like a nice, clean, open concept backyard with not too many places to hide, the rodent or any kind of vermin will not want to hide there, because they want to hide from their enemies.
So once we know that there's a rat or mice problem, they call you in. What are the steps that you take to get rid of them?
First thing first, I start talking with the homeowner. I want to get an idea of what's going on. I like to get an idea how long they've had the problem for, what they've done in the past to try and eradicate it. Because if I understand what they've done in the past, I don't want to employ the same strategies, because it's definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and looking for a different result. So yeah. I want to have a good conversation with the homeowner to kind of figure out what's happening there. And then what I do is I walk around the perimeter. I usually like when the homeowner comes with me around the perimeter of the home, so they're involved with the process. Explain to them what things need to be sealed. Sometimes, I'll show them different things like, grading issues or other things that may not be related to pest problems, but may be related to pest issues in the future, right? So, and by walking around the perimeter of the property, I show them and I identify places where rodents will come in. On the inside, I then try to figure out how the rodents are moving around the house, because I'm mapping out in my head. Well, if I'm a mouse or a rat, where would I go? Where would I hide? And the strategies, the pest control strategies, based on what I'm going to do. So, say for instance, now, okay, if I know there's mice running around the house, I'm going to employ probably a rodenticide. So I'll use rodenticide, but I'm going to place it strategically in areas where I know that the mice have been traveling. Because if you place the poison someplace else where the mice are not going, they're not going to get to it, and they're not going to expire, right? Mm-hmm. Just like if I'm dealing with rats, I'm more likely to employ snap trapping, because I find that there's nothing wrong with using poison for rats, but one of the things you have to be aware of when you're using poison, that when the rat dies, it smells, and it reeks, and if I cannot get that body out of there, it's going to smell for a couple of weeks. So depending on the season, like in the summertime, the body can rot real quickly. In the fall, it may not rot as quick, and with the cold weather and everything, and you're dealing with this rotten smell, and you have to deal with the flies and the maggots and whatnot. So sometimes I prefer using the snap trap method for rats. It may involve more follow-ups, but at least the customer understands my point of view and how I deal with that. And then of course, after we're completed the service, then we'll be looking at doing follow-ups, like maybe a 1 month follow-up, 3 month, 5 month. It all depends on what the situation is to make sure the problem is eradicated. And
the bodies of these mice and rats they're so flexible. They can get through the tiniest little holes, as we already talked about.
That's right.
So I guess they mostly just hide inside the walls, right? And
correct.
So yeah, you're right. So what if they die inside the wall when you?
Good question. That's the time bomb that everybody wants to know that question now. Okay, people, there's a myth out there that the mouse or the rat will eat the poison, dry up, and die. That is not true. Okay, the poison is an anticoagulant. Most poisons are anticoagulants, like bromelain, which is something I use a lot, is an anticoagulant. So when the rat dies, It has blood. It's like meat, right? So it will rot, and because the body size is smaller, the smell may not be as apparent, right? They may die in the walls and so forth. Just like if rats die in the walls, the smell is very apparent if it's been poisoned. Some people have gotten lucky where they've put poison in the house, and the rat has died has died in the walls, and they haven't noticed it because maybe it was packed with insulation, or it was in a void space where where the smell could not be permeated. But if God forbid that rat died on top of an AC vent or something of that nature, the smell can last. So most time, from my experience, the rodents will die inside the house, in the wall voids. It's kind of a tomato tomato strategy. You can use snap traps, but you're dealing with follow-ups. But what I usually do before I do anything, I clearly explain to the client what my game plan strategy is going to be, and I make sure that they're comfortable before anything is done. Because the last thing you want to do is do something the client is not happy with, because there's so many things I have to think about. If I'm placing the poison, it has to be labeled. I have to place it in areas away from non-targeted non-targeted animals, also small kids. Obviously you're not going to put poison or in a locked box behind a play area. You want to make sure out of sight, out of mind. That's my philosophy, and that's how it's a way for the exterminator or pest management professional to protect themselves from these kind of things.
Mm-hmm. Why do they come out? I mean, obviously we talked a little bit about it. It's getting cold out there. This is the reason why they're coming in. Is that the biggest reason why they come in, or is there other
Pretty
reasons?
much. Yes, absolutely. So right now, mice and rats will come into your house all year round, right?
Okay.
But because what happens is that mice, they tend to run against the structure of the walls because they feel secure. So they'll run against the wall. If they find a hole, they're going to squeeze through it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But with the colder weather, like they're not able to retain the body heat as well as other animals, so they're desperate to get inside to stay warm, right? And if they can't stay warm, they're going to die. So that's why with the cooler weather coming up, like right now, in the GTA, it's been, the weather has been relatively cool. It's not like it's below zero or anything like that for too long, even though we should be in the very, very cold, winter weather. But right now, since it's getting cooler, the rats and the mice and the rodents are desperate to find a way into the home so that they could survive a little longer.
Is there different types of homes that they prefer? Like, is there these houses that are attached, like townhomes versus semis, and detached homes?
Well, here's the thing, right? I'm glad you brought that up. Now, they're indiscriminate. They'll pick any home, but here's the problem. As a pest management professional, it's a lot more challenging in solving the rodent problem if it's, say, for instance, a semi-detached or a row townhouse. Clients usually ask me, can you give me a guarantee on this? And I say, well, I can't guarantee you anything. The only guarantees are death and taxes, right?
Yeah.
But what we do is we offer a warranty where we try to come back. But the problem is, and still, you know what I mean? If we're looking at the rodent problem at the middle unit in a row townhouse, right? If I cannot find the point of entry in that unit, it's either the left or the right. And if the other units are not cooperative or they do not want to buy into the program, then it's not going to be solved. You're just going to be in a control situation.
Yeah.
If I'm in a detached home, it's best because it's a one-to-one relationship with the client. The client is motivated to get rid of the problem. Any issues is on the client to address immediately. Semi-detached is better than row, but ideally detached houses are the best. And some of my challenges, like when I'm working down in Forest Hill or some of the older parts of the city, like downtown Toronto, it's a very, very challenging because there's a lot of semi-detaches, a lot of older homes, a lot of structural problems. So homes that have a lot of structural issues, older homes, Victorian homes, big problems. Newer homes, newer brick homes and so forth that are, built recently in the last 20, 30 years, not so bad.
Yeah. So when is the best time to call you? I mean, obviously, if you have a rat or mouse problem, but like, when should they call? Like right away? Like, I mean,
Well, yeah, like it all depends on what your pain threshold is. Like, you know what I mean?
Mm.
Like it's when you feel that okay, it's important to get rid of this. I would recommend that if you start seeing a mouse right away, it's not a freak chance, right? It's there's something going on. A mouse may have gotten in somewhere underneath the deck where there could be some bricks missing or something of that nature. It could be garage door gaps in the by the sides of the garage door, like they're chewing on the weather stripping, that sort of thing. And it could be a lot more complicated than, someone going online and researching this information to see if they could solve it on their own. Like you could try, and there's lots of free information out there. There's lots of experts out there that provide professional opinions. However, is how much is your time worth, right?
Mm.
So it's all based on what your time is worth and how much energy are you going to exert in this. Because a lot of my clients, what they do is they try the do-it-yourself method by going to some of the home, like some of those those depot stores and whatnot, or do-it-yourself stores, and they try to buy all the products, but unfortunately it just doesn't work because you're just placing the poison. You have to kind of think like the rodent. You have to understand the biology. You have to understand their movement, and you have to find ways of intercepting them. So
and that's why hiring an expert is really
absolutely,
the only way to do
absolutely,
it.
absolutely.
So obviously hiring you, calling you, or at least somebody who's got experience is the best thing. But in my opinion, I mean, you sound like you're very good at what you do, and
Thank you very much.
you'll probably do the best job you can do to help people. I will have your contact information in the show notes, but by all means, your website is powerpestcontrol.ca, right?
Correct, sir.
So people can go visit your website, get some more information, and get in touch with you to see if you can help them in their issues, which I know you will, right? So, is there anything else you want to add, or anything that we missed?
Well, one of the things I wanted to point out is that with rodent issues, one of the biggest challenges that I'm having in the Toronto area is with rats. Rats. There's one thing about rats is that mice are curious. They're a lot easier to exterminate than dealing with rodents because they're smarter. They're a little more sleek in how you deal with them. And a lot of the problems with some of the older Victorian homes, like in the beaches, Forest Hill, the rat problems are not coming from outside. They're actually coming from inside the house, where, say, for instance, the concrete floor is eroding behind the wall, and the concrete is breaking up. So what happens is the rats are just coming up through the floor. Old clay drains that may have collapsed, or people have moved the drains from one room to the next, and they forgot to, cap up that area. The rats are coming up through the floors, coming up through old sewer drains. So that's some of the other problems that we're dealing with. Right now, and you have to kind of always be learning new things and understanding that the pest problems now with so many people coming into the city, and homes are so dense. So the more dense a community is, the tougher the pest problem. And that's the key thing that homeowners need to understand. If you live in say for instance, like a community like maybe Caledon or something, where it's a lot more open space, the density's not, it's a lot easier to resolve those pest problems. When you're downtown Toronto, where space is a premium, it's a lot harder to solve the problem. And if you're down by the water, every community in the city has their own pest challenges. It's just trying to understand the individual communities and how you can find ways of either eliminating or controlling the problem for the homeowner.
So I did hear that Toronto is getting worse and worse with the rat problem, but
Correct.
we're probably nowhere near what Manhattan or New York.
Correct. Absolutely. Chicago, and New York, the rats are kings there.
Well, Peter, it was a pleasure having you on again to give us this insightful information on how to get rid of pests, and we will definitely have you on again to talk about more issues that come up in the future. Again, thank you very much, and I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, Robert.